Welcome to another Baby Theater in the Dark. Ah, yes. Tonight will be the tale of David the Chupacabra. You see, most chupacabra don't have names. They just are some creature out there somewhere. David was a little different. He was chosen by the humans. You see, it is a bit of a conspiracy, but some conspiracies are true. Now, before we get into it, we have to understand that David is, yes, a bloodsucker, but he also has a heart. And that makes him, able to beat so and so number of minutes, so and so number of beats per minute. And this pumps blood into his own body. So technically, he's just replacing his own blood with others. So yes. Well, David had stumbled upon a cabin in the woods, and as things go, there was a mage in there. And the mage, could speak to animals, so he simply asked the chupacabra, "Well, what are you doing?" And the chupacabra replied, "Well, trying to find some blood to suck." Now, you see, this mage, he didn't like his neighbors. So, well, any neighbors at that. But he couldn't have him eating his goats because he needed them for sacrificial purposes. So he let the chupacabra know, well, what I can do is I can pay you in some blood that I supply myself from the goats if you eat other animals that I do not like, or maybe even humans. How about that? Chupacabra is like, yes, I like it. I like it a lot. So it was so. David the Chupacabra was named, and he spent his life almost as if he was a paid assassin, one would say. Now, David kind of began to grow tired of this. It was almost as if he didn't have his own will at all. All he had was the will of the mage. Well, this wouldn't do. So the mage, he had a plan. The mage knew this would probably happen, so what he'd done is he made a small spell in the chupacabra's brain, David's brain. The spell would populate and pop some blood cells and blood vessels in his head if he were to betray the mage. Now, David didn't know this, but David, he was ready for the worst. So, David started his plan. It wasn't necessarily a betrayal, per se. More of a coup. Now, David basically went down the line of all the enemies that he'd made due to, certain casualties, sometimes even getting blood from humans and bringing it back to the mage. He didn't even get to eat it. I mean, that was a betrayal in itself, if you think about it. David did think about it. Now, David was very excited to start enacting his plan. what he would do is he would leave small notes, ineligible notes per se, but he did draw a few pictures sometimes. And the pictures depicted the mage and his location. Now, this itself is not a betrayal, because he's not actually doing anything improper. He's simply providing information. So, the blood vessels in his head were safe. Now the mage, well, he didn't think of this too hard, because he didn't think David would be so intelligent to get a workaround on his own spell. Well, what happened is David simply disappeared, went his own way. He said, well, David, or Mage, it was nice to know you, but I am out of here. But he said it in a way where the mage wasn't able to hear him. Yet he still made his part in peace. Therefore, the spell evaporated. Now, you might think this is the end of the story for David, but it was only just beginning. David went straight to the beach and began munching on some sharks. Now, why did he munch on sharks? We aren't still sure to this day, but I think it's because he got tired of land mammals. So, there's that. Once he was underwater, he found a plethora of different items there. Now, there were some items that seemed to glow a little green, just a little bit off. And he wondered, perhaps this is what gold is like. Now, he didn't know any better. And I would say if I'd never seen gold and I was looking into it, maybe I wouldn't think that this glowing green goop would be gold, but at the same time, if you don't know what it is, maybe you just don't know. I can't speak to it myself. But what I can speak to is what David found down there. It was not gold. It was radioactive sludge. Well, the items were coated in it. They were from a submarine of sorts. It was just abandoned just nearby. Now, these radioactive items, they did something to David. They turned him into an amphibious creature. Now, this is very strange for a chupacabra. They can stay underwater for some time, but they can't live there. Certainly can't stay long enough to find out. But now he could. He began to traverse the depths. He began to build up a tolerance to the deep pressures of the ocean floor. Soon, he was able to walk upon the bottoms of some of the lesser depths of the ocean. What he found might shock you. He found a submarine suit. He put it on, and he was able to go deeper and deeper. Now, he was near the bottom. This was quite deep. It was quite deep. And then he began to hear a voice. Quiet at first, but it suddenly came a violent cacophony of sound and fear. It burned through his brain like a snail. Suddenly, he realized it was what humans call singing. It was the home of the Sirens. The Sirens had never seen a creature like this before. There had never really been a creature like this before. They rushed over to him, and they greeted him. "What is your name, O great traveler?" "David," he replied, in shock. The Sirens were taken aback. They didn't understand how this creature could simply talk and communicate. Well, that was the work of the radioactive goop. Yes. Now, you see, the Sirens, well, they had their own gig going on. They sing to humans, and they drag them under the depths, suck their soul out. Now, the one thing they didn't do is they actually didn't drink the blood. They were more concerned and they fed upon the emotions and the fears and the hatred that the men had and carried. So, the chupacabra was in a fantastic spot because David was able to eat all these men's blood now. It was a buffet. Simply a buffet. After a while, he could actually swim below the depths without the suit. He just built up that tolerance. Now, he's somewhat of a creature that I would call frightening. Amphibious. Goat sucker. But more like a shark sucker. Oh, human sucker now. Crazy. But the main thing is, now he can have all he can eat. The Sirens really liked him. They made him one of their own. They taught him to charm. Just like they did. To be able to manipulate people's minds. Well, David was no longer a chupacabra. He was simply a Skara. There's only one. Or is there? Perhaps there are more out there in the depths. We may never know.